begin. Meeting will come to order of the Harwich Agricultural Commission of April 14th, 15th rather. And our discussion tonight is regarding livestock regulations. We were asked by the Board of Health to assist them in some guidelines with some direction, and that's why we're here to have that discussion. Angela is potentially going to be leaving a little bit early, but
That's okay, around 7. It's okay with everybody?
if it's okay, maybe we could open with your
Sure.
thoughts.
Good evening, my name is Angela McNamara. I'm a resident of Harwich. My husband and I currently have a barn. We have 2 horses, 2 donkeys, and I am ready and available to help craft the regulations for livestock for the town of Harwich. I have a lot of experience with horses. I've had horses my whole life, so that's a lot of years. So I hopefully can help out with this, give some insight into the equine aspect of it. I have no experience with pigs, fowl, or anything like that, but I hopefully can help with the equine end of it.
Okay. Would you like to maybe run through the information that you have and point out any points of interest that you come up to, or suggestion, or anything that we would like to address?
Yes. My first is I was just curious where all the definitions came from. So I think we need to find out where those came from, because
As I understand it, the majority of this draft was taken from the town of Chatham regulations,
okay.
and I think that's where a lot of the print originated.
And that's great, but I'd like to, I think as a commission for Harwich, we need to look at these definitions, where they came from, and we can add, subtract, or keep them as a separate town. I mean, we're different from Chatham, and I think I went into the Mass General Laws to try and find definitions for livestock, for farms, this, that, and the other. I didn't quite find this, but I didn't spend hours looking for it. So I'm just curious. I don't have a problem with them, but I'd like to know where they came from, because we might be able to find better, more accurate definitions for our town. I don't know. These could be perfectly acceptable, but I don't know. I think it's worth looking into.
Okay.
That would be my first point. I'm glad that the 5 or more acres is going to be taken out, because there's nothing to do with us. We're looking at small farms, 5 acres and less.
Well, whether it's going to be taken out or not,
We're not sure.
we're not sure, but
We would like it to be taken out. Is that,
that
we'd like-
suggestion was put in here to, personally, my belief is that anything over 5 acres should be considered a commercial
correct?
entity and should be exempt from our town bylaws.
Agreed, yeah. I mean, as much as I know, I agree
Can
with
I
that.
ask a question, Mark? So if you get over the 5, anything the health department's gonna put together, you're exempt from that.
That would be my request.
Okay. Yep. I agree.
Okay.
And then, so the 2 and above where you qualify would be under these conditions.
Under 5 acres would be
Subject to-
applicable to.
okay.
Because Harwich is a right to farm
Correct.
Yes.
town, so, yeah.
Right.
Right.
And I was just kind of going through it casually. I mean, I don't want to be, because I don't know anything like the piggeries and all that kind of thing, but, you know, of course I went and measured my barn, you know, to make sure that I was, and although our barn is over 20 years old, just to make sure everything was A-okay with what the proposed regulations are going to be on the barn size, which I think it's pretty good. Don't have a problem with that. I do have a question about the enforcing provisions and fines. I think that's important. Who enforces them? Who collects the fine? Is there appeals? How did these fines come about? Do we like them? Do we not? I don't know. I think we need to discuss this.
Okay.
And where the money goes.
Correct. Yes.
Yep, that's an issue.
I think if we could, I mean, the suggestion would be to go back into some kind of animal farm-related fund.
Absolutely.
I don't know, I mean, we'll see.
I agree with that.
I'm glad the composting is going to be on a case-by-case, hopefully on a case-by-case thing, because we have a concrete slab. It's three-sided plus probably another third, and it gets, my husband takes it out every 6 to 8 weeks, depending, you know. And he does whatever you do with it. He composts it and all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad that it's on a case by case, because keeping manure covered is not always a good idea.
I agree.
So I'm glad that is hopefully going to come out, or not even be an issue. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what I kind of stuck out to me. I mean, certainly once we delve into the bones of it, we can have a lot more discussions
Okay.
against, you know, because of the poultry and the piggeries and all that. I have no idea, so I'm looking forward to learning about that.
All right, perfect, thank you. Just as a point of interest, I did have discussion with Jen Harrington, Animal Control Officer, and I asked her if she could come tonight. Unfortunately, she is home ill, and she could not make it. But we did have a conversation, and she's very agreeable and helpful, and I think she's probably going to be a very positive factor in all of it going forward for every level.
Yes, I'm curious to see what she looks at when she goes onto people's properties. What exactly is she looking for? I know she needs guidance, but from her point of view, and when she goes to a place, she came to my place and I was on vacation. So, and certainly I have great people that help out, but you know, I'm not there. So if anything happens and I'm not there, you know, I'm not saying it would, but for other people. You know, because it's always unannounced.
Can I make a point here on exactly that? That the animal inspector has a right to inspect a property with a complaint of something. I'm not sure why we're inspecting unannounced with regular citizens trying to get people. That I'm happy to set up an appointment to come, I'm not hiding anything, but why are we showing up unannounced when people haven't done anything wrong? If there is an animal cruelty complaint, then you get right over there. But my experience was, I was sent a certified letter threatening fines when I hadn't been asked at all. And I said, we didn't do this last year. Oh, we didn't do it because of COVID. And I said, then how did I know we were doing it this year? And I was sent a certified letter with 5 days to comply, or I'd be fined.
Well, that's a specific case, and I couldn't speak for it or against it or anything about it, Jeff. These are questions that need to be
So we
discussed.
get-
going forward.
I asked also for a list of what would be inspected and what conditions and stuff. The answer I was given is I should know how to take care of my animals, which I do, but there should be a standard for everyone as to what's being inspected. That, you know, that's fine, and this is part of what I've asked for too. Square footage for animals, what are you looking for? You know, the answer right now is enough water. Whose decision is enough water? I can tell you how much a chicken drinks each day and how much I provide. But if it's gonna be arbitrary and somebody comes out and tells you, well, I don't think there's enough water in there.
Well, I think, not to interrupt, but I think the basis of what we're trying to do here is establish some guideline to take away these questions.
Perfect.
To develop some direction,
Exactly, I
to
couldn't agree
take
more.
away that conversation and discussion
Right.
that doesn't need to happen.
Perfect.
I think everybody's willing to be reasonable, but I think we've got to establish it.
I did go into the MGLs. I didn't see that the unannounced visits were, I think it's by I think town by town. It's not a statute, it's not anything in there that it has to be unannounced. So that's something we might discuss with her, or the town Board of Health, maybe that's their procedure, their policy, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of courtesy, on private property goes a long way.
Okay, obviously, points of discussion.
I don't feel anybody should enter your property uninvited without, setting up a time to come and meet with you. If there's a complaint, that's a whole nother thing, but I mean, it's people walking onto your property, anything
Going
can
in your
happen.
barn.
It's a liability one way, I don't think anybody else would like it if I walked into their house or their barn or their property. It's just
Without a complaint.
without a complaint.
It's a courteous thing too, more
Right,
than anything.
it's a,
All valid points.
yeah.
I totally agree with you, Aaron.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to highlight?
Actually, there's one more thing I want to add. I think it should be a requirement, and I don't know if it is, I should have looked deeper, it just kind of came to my head, is every barn should have posted the Mass General Law that basically barn owners, horse owners are not liable for any injury incurred on their property with horses, equines. I have it posted right in our back driveway. It doesn't stop people. We have 3 private signs on our property. It doesn't stop them, but actually we need to look into what does that actually mean in terms of liability. My insurance company requires it, so I had to we take photos, we send it to them, but in terms of real liability with the town, with you, if you do it, if you have it posted, does that really protect you? And can we require it for property owners' protection? Do you know what do you follow? Do you know what I mean? It's you buy it online. Every state has their own way of wording it, or states that do have it.
Yep.
So it has to be posted in conspicuous area. So I have one at the back. If I had borders, I'd have one at the back and one at the front of the barn.
Okay.
But I only have it at the back, because that's where people come, that's where people trespass. So,
Okay. All right. Obviously, very important point. Anybody else have anything they want to address in issues that we have, or any thoughts, directions?
You have anything in there? I only have Aaron's copy, so when he's done,
Most of the things that you put in there, Mark, I'm in agreement on for sure. Private property issue, having the door open for anybody is a liability.
Yep.
You can put signs up there, and if they can't read that language, any lawyer, it's basically, if you have something to get, they'll come and get it.
Well, unfortunately, that's kind of the way of
Fortunately,
the world.
that's the world we live in.
Yep.
But liability is very concerning. You can post it, you can put up gates. Nobody pays attention. They're all looking at their phones or their GPS, and they drive right by you and try and almost run you over,
Oh, I didn't see the
on your own
sign.
property. It happens all the time.
I didn't see the sign.
we have 2 granite posts at their back driveway, that's where people come, because it's private. It says private, right in the granite post. Then on the driver's side, when you get out, I have a nice sign, private residence, right there. Then I got the Mass General Law. Then as they walk up, there's another sign, private. And I chased someone off the other day. But anyway, so we're digressing. That's just a complaint.
Yeah, well, I understand, because I have people coming into my place all the time.
Ugh.
And they come in with a car, they come in on foot, they come in on horseback, they come in on bicycles. And,
It's crazy.
yeah, you never really know what's coming down the
I
driveway.
know.
Does anybody have any remarks regarding the setbacks that were information in this draft?
I do want, well, Aaron go first, if he's got any. Can I look at that copy?
Yep.
Let me ask, so I saw that you put in here, Mark, like pre-existing stuff.
Yep.
It said, you know, everybody around town that has, if this is new construction, you know, I have a barn that's been there who knows how long.
You're in the old place,
Depot,
yeah,
Bill Kroll's old.
the old Kroll place, yeah.
So my barn is a couple of feet from the property line.
Well, the language that I used, Jeff, did you get it right there? Regarding
Yeah.
pre-existing?
Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm. I
Okay.
like what you wrote.
Again, this was my feeling. This is not carved in stone by any stretch. It's a thought and an opinion. But pre-existing permitted livestock or equine stables with a positive history and no prior complaints can be granted a variance from the Board of Health as to not require any significant changes. The Board of Health would retain the right to review on a case-by-case basis. So in other words, if there was a reason to look at it, they would be the body to convince or deal with or work through any potential question, problem, or issue.
Can we clarify or add to prior complaints, prior substantiated complaints? I have had countless complaints from neighbors that are false. Does that gonna open me to, I spent the summer going home almost every day during the day to meet police officers because my neighbor was afraid that a goat might get out.
I don't know how you could, well,
A credible or a substantiated or, because anybody can make any complaint that they would like.
they certainly can.
So does that, I had a 12-item complaint to the building department 3 summers ago that I spent 4 nights researching the laws, and 0 of the 12 were violations. One of them was that I parked my truck on my own grass.
That'll teach you. Regarding that, the bottom sentence says Board of Health retains the right to review on a case-by-case basis. I'm of the belief that that's where it should stand, because each case has to be based on its own merit, for or against. Neighbors dispute things with other neighbors all the time, and sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. But somewhere in the mechanics of it all, it's gotta be sorted out and decided who's gonna.
Well, the way I'm reading, it's permitted livestock or equine stable with a positive history. So on my own case, as far as the Board of Health, I have a positive history. But this says no prior complaints.
Well,
So I can't automatically be granted, the way this reads, a variance because I have had prior complaints.
okay,
So I think it should say substantiated complaints.
okay.
Or complaints that required action of something
Doesn't
along
sound
those,
unreasonable.
Okay,
something around
No,
those
this
lines. 'Cause
does not-
anybody can complain about anything, and they do.
They do.
Yep.
Going down next, I couldn't agree more with Angela on the definitions, because I don't want to go through every one of them, but some of these contradict each other. And I don't know where some of them came from. Again, I don't want to go through the whole thing.
Now, we can reach out to the town of Chatham. Their animal control officer, is that who put it together, we think?
Let me,
former animal
Oh,
control
former,
officer.
okay.
yeah,
Well, hopefully they've had some record of where it all came from.
I would expect so.
Is there a,
I can find that out.
Okay.
is there a higher up governing body, say USDA or someone? Because I know some of the right to farm stuff mentions that, or in here you have regularly accepted practices, it says. Where are those practices coming from?
Whatever language there is in the MDR regulations.
Sure.
That's the baseline for any agricultural law statewide.
Okay, I'm just looking for clarification and definitions on these as to what are exactly the and is it someone's opinion or is it a fact?
A lot of times it's a person's opinion or a town's opinion.
Yeah, in many cases, it seems to be that way.
I went to the MGL, the general laws for agriculture, and I kind of read through it, and it's very, very vague. And it's vague on purpose, that way towns can make their own policies and procedures,
Exactly.
as long as they encompass
The state.
what the state regulates, so. I think we can write, or we can suggest to the Board of Health, our own procedures and policies to them, and then they can say yay or nay, or let's, rework it. That's what we're doing, as long as it's within what the general consensus of the state regulations are.
Right.
So this is like a blank slate for us, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, it really kind of is.
So this is a great guideline, but we can make it our own for the town of Harwich.
Can I ask, Mark, is the meeting with the Board of Health, are they gonna make any decisions, or this is just an
I don't know, I think they have the option to by looking at the agenda. I don't exactly know their intention as to how quickly they want to close on this, but we were asked to go into a joint session, and to me, that would start as a conversation, a discussion. But, when we put everybody together to have this conversation, they had already prepared a draft, which I shared with everybody. What my feeling was is we needed to hone that and begin the dialogue to have some talking points. And,
This shouldn't be a quick fix.
no,
This
I
should
agree,
not-
this,
No,
yep,
that's-
The Board of Health
what I'm
should
asking.
understand that also. It takes time to read through everything. I mean, I took some time and you gotta reread it because it's such gobbledygook when you read these general laws. At least for me, I'm not an attorney, I gotta go back and read that sentence again and try and figure it out. What's the meaning of this? What do they want us to do?
yep.
So,
That's good, we need time. They're not gonna try to make decisions next week, and
I cannot speak for them. My assumption would be that they would not be
okay, good. No, that's fine.
ready to make a decision at that point, so I don't feel it would be ready. I don't feel it would be prudent either.
Perfect.
I would think that they want this to be a thoughtful group discussion.
Oh, I would certainly expect so, yeah.
Yeah, so,
I like your addition, Mark, of a barrier to keep poultry, because you can't have a free-range thing that runs in everybody's yard.
Well, it's a surefire way to make everybody mad at you, because not everybody is thrilled with a chicken trotting across their dining room.
Either that or you're giving all your neighbors free dinner.
One or the other.
Let me ask you, you've got removed the minimum lot size. But they had, so the way I read it was that if you're under 40,000 square feet, you can't have any animals.
That's how that particular draft was prepared. My feeling was that should be removed, for a number of reasons. A lot of small lots in town. Family wants to have a small flock of chickens, they should be able to do that. If they only have a quarter-acre lot, well, then they should be able to have a small coop. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's chickens. Maybe they have a few pigeons that are pets or something of that sort. There's other things that people can do, and
people love to keep a goat or two.
right,
or
exactly.
As a pet, or,
Yeah, and I mean, where do you draw the line? I mean, a potbelly pig is not an agricultural hog, but nonetheless, still swine.
I think that's great. I think, where we're getting now to a lack of housing and we need affordable housing, you just, anybody on an affordable lot is out,
Right.
the way they're trying to do it.
Right.
It's almost, it's becoming elitist, that everybody should have, somehow down the road, we figure out amounts per square foot. So if you say, as you say, if you have a quarter acre lot, you can have up to a certain amount.
Well, yeah, and I think that needs to be evaluated as we go through it. I mean, I'm not necessarily sure there's a hard and fast answer for that. Again, to me, there's so much of this is case by case.
I know, you're right.
Every farm is different.
Yeah.
It's gonna be making adjustments on a daily basis as things come,
That's right.
come to us. Because
Absolutely.
you can't predict what, anything's gonna happen.
People raise their animals, their children, everything
Yeah.
differently.
Right.
You know? So,
The best thing is to be good neighbors and get along with people, and if there's a problem, you address it yourself before, any authority has to get involved.
Try to work it out,
Right.
you know?
So then you've got down here for the enclosures. But they had 15, right? So you went to 10.
My feeling was to drop that back to 10 feet for any enclosure, which would be a corral or a pen or any subject.
Does
of
that-
And I'll tell you why I chose that. Because when somebody comes in to lean over your horse's fence and pat him and he gets bit, he is trespassing. If the fence is on the lot line, he is not trespassing. To me, that changes the liability issue.
we're 10 feet
Great
off.
point. I like that.
Makes sense.
We're insured with farm families, so we
Right.
had him come out to make sure that we were in compliance.
Right.
Before we even put up fencing or anything.
Sure.
So that makes complete sense.
Yep.
But they still will get onto your property.
Oh, that's gonna happen. You're never gonna escape that, unfortunately. People take liberties. And, but, so you try to protect yourself as best you can. Regarding some of the other setbacks that were addressed there, one of them that they had mentioned was a 30-foot barn setback, a 40-foot coop setback, kennel and rabbitry and so forth. My feeling on the setbacks were really very simple. You should maintain the building setbacks as they are per the zoning requirements in that particular part of town. Hypothetically, if you've got a 20-foot sideline setback, which you do in many cases, that means your building is already 20 feet off. Well, your neighbor's building is also 20 feet off. So now you've got a minimum of 40 feet before you start. So, I mean, I think that's already built in.
Agreed. Zoning's already in place.
Yeah.
So would that, because there's all different, why is a barn 15 feet and a coop is 30 feet and this? So if it could be a blanket with the buildings?
Again, that was my intent, was to remove those specific requirements, only specified with enclosures being 10 feet away from the lot line. And the outbreak of those other pieces right there, take it away. Stay with the standard building setbacks. And to me, that's adequate coverage. Water supply, 100 feet is standard, 400 feet is standard from a town water supply. I mean, obviously, that's not an issue can be
Right.
compromised.
Right.
But utilizing your property to the best of its available space, that's a concern. But common sense and safety is too.
All right, the piggery is in lighter coloring? Is that,
I was trying to strike that from that list
yep,
to move on
Okay.
to a separate area.
excellent.
Because going forward, in this particular draft, they had this laid out at no more than one pig per 40,000 square feet. Well, to start with, not more than 2 pigs are permitted for non-commercial raising or keeping. I had addressed that further on, and it is actually under
under at 7.3, the whole. Is that the piggeries?
Let's see, of course,
Is it, it's oh, that's,
Well, I know it's here, I
yeah,
just can't
I
find it.
read it. Oh. Is it 5.3, the piggeries? All the maintenance and underneath where you started, ventilation,
Back up a little bit.
back up?
Back under 5.3, 5.3,
Right,
new item D, E rather.
E, okay.
Under minimum distances requirements for non-commercial piggery. Pigs raised for personal use will be allowed with a minimum of 2 acres required and a maximum of 3 feeder pigs per property. My feeling is that would give most people the opportunity to have up to 3 hogs. And the enclosure would have to be 75 feet from any dwelling or lot line, 100 feet from any well, and 400 feet from any municipal well, and 100 feet from wetlands, which all that is standard anyway. But that does, essentially, what you've got is a maximum of 3 pigs with, on a 2-acre lot as a minimum, and 75 feet from anything, as far as a dwelling or property line.
so that's non-commercial, or is commercial addressed?
Commercial would be 5 acres or over, so that would fall under the state guidelines.
But commercial is 2 acres or over.
Nope.
5.
So these laws that say 2 acres
It's a
with
different,
certain requirements.
it's a different statute.
Can you explain that, how it's a different?
That's it in print, Jeff.
Now, does this stem from the issues that happened in town?
It's, yeah,
Okay,
there's actually been, over a period of years, there were different circumstances that came up that caused some controversy. The most recent one was the one down the street here.
right, yeah.
And that was a pretty contentious issue.
Is that over with now?
Yeah.
Did the towns, did they all?
It's done there, I believe those folks are gone.
Oh,
and,
gone, yeah,
I think that's all history at this point.
okay.
The Board of Health would certainly have all of the pertinent
Information on- yeah.
information about that, because they were pivotal to that whole thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I remember that.
So this small plot farming
Yep,
that says minimum area parcels whose primary use is commercial agriculture has been narrowed with respect to agricultural parcels of 2 acres or more if the sale of products from the agricultural use generates $1,000 or more per acre of gross annual sales. So that's not commercial, or how does that?
well, yeah, I guess actually it is technically.
Yes.
See, this is where you come into a conversation and a discussion for everybody. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
I don't think, is that for us to decide? Well, it's-
Well,
it's
yeah,
legal.
actually, I think it kind of is for us to decide. My own opinion would be if an agricultural entity is of all of the normal state guidelines, it should be governed by the state regulations. When you come under that, that statute is an exemption of sorts, and it's intended to give people an opportunity to extend beyond their own use. Raising livestock and raising strawberries are 2 different things.
But
Now, this is my opinion. Okay? I'm not sure I can really answer your question, Jeff.
Well, it says in the state law, 2 acres or more if you meet these categories.
Mhm.
That's the state law. Like, it's not,
State law is a minimum. And if the town is going to enact bylaws, that is in addition to any state law.
but the town's right to farm is based on this, that the town accepted. And if you read it, this is part of it.
Guess to a degree.
I think our focus should be on the animal end of it.
Mhm.
Care of animals, making sure that, everything is above board, and, I know what you're saying. I think the spirit was, the 2 acres is like strawberry farming. I mean, I understand, and that's why we're here, is to kind of hash it out
You
and
ask,
figure it
how
out.
many acres do you have?
3.5.
But you're a farm, correct?
Well, yeah,
And you have animals,
Mhm.
but you're not 5.
they're not commercial.
Okay.
They're not commercial. They're,
But it says right here, 2-acre parcels for commercial. It says that in the state law.
oh, I'm not disagreeing with you. No, not at all. I'm just saying that's why we're here, is to hash this out. I mean,
So anyone who purchases a property 2 acres or more, reading these state laws, is out of luck, or how does that go?
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Yeah, neither would I. I mean,
But
one of the reasons behind the right to farm bylaw is for people to be aware that it exists. Buyer beware, if you will. Okay? Know that people in this town and your abutters have the right to do certain things. So if you buy a house and you move in, and in 6 months your neighbor decides he's gonna have chickens, don't be offended, because that's, within his right. I understand your point, Jeff. Again, I fall back to establishing the regulations, and this is the talking point as to what is going to be reasonable and what's gonna be acceptable.
My question would be, where's the line between personal use and commercial use? We're zoned in different aspects, different parts of town as far as commercial and farming and other things. I don't think it was the state's idea to create a commercial atmosphere under their change in their laws, to be honest with you.
Maybe we need to come up with a definition for commercial versus,
Correct.
well, what is the state's definition?
can look that up, if there is even one.
Oh, the state does have it, and it lists all the forms, and agriculture and floriculture and all the different things,
Right.
including all the animals, all of that. I mean, it's inclusive on all of the things.
But for the town to make it understandable to people, we should have a definition, I think.
There's gotta be a.
Because no one's gonna go online and look up MGL laws and
Right.
definitions. They
Right.
really, you have to do these things for people.
I agree.
If you have 2 acres, does that mean you can have 10,000 chickens?
Don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
believe so.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I can't imagine that
This
that
is-
was,
No, but this is where the state has left it, and that's where we're getting to,
Okay.
but there should be something per size. No, personally, I'm asking for X amount of things that I don't think is unreasonable. I'm not looking to have 10,000 chickens. I'm looking to have, X amount that nobody even sees. But I don't want, we're encouraging people to farm and encouraging people to do this. But we're also discouraging people from this.
I guess you can always have that argument. But again, the intent of what we're doing is to establish that line and definition. So I guess maybe that's what we need to be thinking about.
And not hurt anyone.
Right. Because it's gotta be fair for everybody, both sides, you know?
Well, the fair is a tough word. what's fair?
Well, I don't know. There's a point where you have to decide what it is and stick with it and go on. And not everybody's gonna like it every time.
If you read the town's adoption of the thing, it says that certain things far outweigh any neighbor's complaint.
Well,
So my question is, why was that written? Why is that put out there if that's not true?
well, what are you talking about specifically, though?
It says in the town, in, chapter 89. Let me find it. It's 89.3. The right to farm is hereby recognized to exist within the town of Harwich. The above described agricultural activities may occur on holidays, weekdays, and weekends, by night or day, and shall include the attendant incidental noise, odors, dust, and fumes associated with normally accepted agricultural practices. It is hereby determined that whatever impact may be caused to others through the normal practice of agriculture is more than offset by the benefits of farming to the neighborhood, community, and society in general.
Okay. Well, then that certainly can't be discounted, can it?
No. Says the benefits and protections of this bylaw are intended to apply exclusively to those commercial agriculture and farming operations and activities conducted in accordance with generally accepted agricultural practices.
See, that didn't happen with that family down the road. It got turned on them. They thought they were doing what they're supposed to, as I understand, and the neighbors were like, but I'm not an expert on it, but I
Well-
did go to a hearing, because I was,
I went to several,
It was-
and it was,
There were a lot of factors there.
yep.
yeah, there were a lot of factors, you're
You
right.
know, I'm not sure that's
A good case example.
no, it really isn't.
No,
You're right, but
Because there were so many things involved.
It's, your general, yes, but there were things going on there that weren't.
I think, wasn't the original, it was the smell and the, all that, and then it just,
What started it off was a conservation violation, because they went in and started clearing land that was actually wetlands. And that's what spurred it, and then it went on and excelled from there. So how it all played out is another story, but it led in stages, and
Well, I was asked to clear the conservation. I wouldn't touch it over there.
well,
I wouldn't go near it.
well, these are factors that's why we're here. It's like,
Right.
we need to try and clear it up for
I mean, you
people.
can't, there are governing laws regarding wetlands and agriculture.
Can't.
It's, there's the thought that agriculture is exempt from that. It is not exempt. There are specific requirements, and there's certain things you can and cannot do. But as I see it, what took place over there was that was set aside, and they went under the assumption that they were exempt, and they moved ahead full speed. That was not
No, that was.
how it was gonna work out.
And then it just took on a life of its own
It
after
did.
that.
It was a pretty nasty battle for everybody concerned. It was not a good situation.
So on this, on a smaller plot than 5, what I'm looking for is regulations. And that if the town sets out, not looking for just, no, you can't do it. Okay, give me the setbacks. Give me what I can do. Give me this, give me a reasonable amount. I'm open to, if they chose to, I'm open to the health department inspecting every day.
Well,
I think that's actually a good question for when we do the joint meeting with the Board of Health, is asking them about the commercial 2-acre, can it be a commercial enterprise with fewer than 5 acres.
I mean, it says it right in this thing you handed.
According to the state, yes, and there is a right to farm bylaw, so the answer, as I see it, would be yes. But again, a lot of this comes back to what I'm understanding is definition. Again, the reason for the meeting with Board of Health is to clarify some of these points. Right?
Well, I didn't see it in here, that's why I want to clarify before we go to them.
Yep.
Is the issue certain animals, or
Right, I know.
what's, if I have 2.01 acres and I want to make a worm farm, is that okay? What's okay, what isn't okay for a commercial entity under 5 acres?
How many cows can you have? I don't know.
Right.
There's
Sheep?
So part of this is, and some of this is, I brought this to attention last summer. I'm asking questions. What can I have? What can I do? I want regulations and I want to comply with those. But, there are no, up until now, on certain things, there aren't any.
They're right. They're right. So this is a good opportunity to come up with some of those answers.
Yeah.
Put some suggestion on the table, some recommendation.
I have my own suggestions, what I want. A commercial over 2, you can have X amount of this. Personally, what I'm looking for on the pig end of things is I'm looking to have 3 adult pigs. And whatever litter comes from it, that are only live to X amount of months. On, if they tell me it's 100 feet, if they tell me it's 200 feet off the line, I can do that. I'm gonna build my idea is to build a fully enclosed thing. I have plans and engineering from the USDA to do these things, which has been modeled off of a farm in New Hampshire I've seen that is absolutely beautiful and immaculate. And if you stick to the standards and there's no issue, I don't see why it's a blanket, you can't do this, when we're trying to encourage people to farm.
I think the piggeries seem to be a problem, not, just in general with people, I'm not saying you or anything like that, but I think people have it's the smell, it's that, and probably should be honing in on that, because if that's what you wanna do and other people wanna do, then you're right, we should.
Oh, and there should be something in there with standards, and if it turns into a problem, it has to
Then-
go away.
As I see it, this is the opportunity to put the information on the table for the options of what you're suggesting, and let's use that as a baseline to go forward with. And then it's gonna be a question of who's gonna say yay or nay, but we need to start with something, so.
How much property do you have over there now?
3.17.
So you're just like us, yeah.
Which is funny, because I have to have it resurveyed, because the USDA says I have 3.42. From their calculations, so I have to have it resurveyed. But
Okay.
For the pig, just for the interest of having pigs, they're mentioning that, or what's their reasoning for the resurveying?
No, they've done a farm plan for me.
Oh, okay.
And their farm plan came out with higher numbers than I have, which
I see.
I hope is
Oh,
true.
okay.
I don't know, so I'm gonna have it officially surveyed.
Okay. Well, the information that you'd like to see put into this, Jeff, this is what we need to include in the,
Oh, I can put it right together. And again, I'm not looking to have 1,000 pigs. I'm looking to have 3 adults, or even I'd be willing to have 2 adults, 1 female, 1 male. I was hoping to do 2 litters, but if they came back and said, no, 1 and 1, I'm gonna take what I get. I'm not gonna become, the pork king of the world.
okay, well, I mean, just to go back to the amendment that I had put in there, what I had down there covers what you're asking for, what you're suggesting.
But you're saying, what the definition of feeder is what, the adult?
Yes,
Doesn't cover the litter.
correct.
So the litter is okay. To what age?
What age do they normally?
My initial
6
thought,
months.
6 months.
yeah, my initial thought was to maintain to 3 feeder pigs. That was my thought. Your thought may be different. So let's put your information on
Well, no,
as
I-
part of it. Let's start with something.
Mine would be 3 adult pigs.
Yep.
And whatever litters they have up to 6 months. If that's what, if I read it wrong, then that's, the way I'm reading this is 3 total pigs on the property.
So we need to add in something about their litters up to 6 months.
Which is a temporary thing.
Right.
Then
It isn't-
that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay, so now you're gonna come into the question of how many litters. And now, if you have 3 adult pigs and you have 3 litters, and it
One-
happens to come all at the same
One male, 2
time.
female. So you could have 2 litters at a time. So you could, if you're counting babies as a pig,
You could wind up with a couple dozen at a time.
yes.
And I think that's where you're gonna have a lot of problem.
So, well, in this, if you had 1 female and 1 litter,
Mm-hmm.
is that acceptable?
To me, it's more acceptable,
How
but
many litters can a sow have? I mean, I don't know anything about them.
They did 2 a year?
They can do 2
2 a year, and, okay.
They can go from 12 to, I guess, 14.
yeah, they can,
Whatever.
They can have a lot of babies.
they can have a lot of
Okay.
babies.
Yeah.
I think the average is probably 10-ish.
The average is 10, but you can get up to 15.
But so 2 litters a year, is that an industry standard?
From who I've dealt with, I raised 2 for
In
myself.
terms of the sow's health, is that
Ye-
an industry standard?
Yes. Oh, I'm not saying I definitely would do that. I'm gonna have at least
No,
one.
no, I
one a
have
year.
no, I'm just asking, I'm not making any, I'm just
Yeah.
curious. Because horses, their gestation is 11 months,
Oh,
so,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's why,
No, the pig is 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days.
okay. So that, yeah, that, when you start saying, oh, 24 piglets, that would be a red flag to a lot of people. But
would think so.
not people who do it, who have pigs, you know what I mean? Right.
Okay?
Let me ask, so say if a property's 5 or over, there'll be no regulation on number of pigs, or how are they gonna handle
As
that?
far as I'm concerned, it would stay right by the state regulations as they are right now.
Okay. So, yeah, okay, good. I gotta buy some plots.
Buy more land. That's all.
Just need some money.
Okay. What else you got on the table, Jeff?
That's fine. I'm just reading through the things you had. Okay, I like how you moved the stable height to a minimum, because of, taller horses. 10. Yeah, the stall sizes are fine. There was one thing that I saw, I don't know if it's in this, where they wanted 2,500 square feet for the first animal, and 1,250 for each after that.
Yeah, I
You know,
think
a horse or a cow needs a certain amount of space, but a Nigerian goat doesn't need that.
Well, I think that was intended to be for bigger animals. I don't think there was any minimum size for goats. I think there should be.
Section was that?
It's section 7, enclosures.
Okay. All right, so that's for the, well, no, they've included in that sheep under ovine. Cat, no, they've included the goats in that as well.
Each animal 2,500 square feet.
I hate to leave you guys, because this is really good. Again, we probably need to get the definitions, and we need to really research how much space goats, sheep need to have for health,
Yep,
health reasons.
yep.
Cows, again, I don't know how much space they need. Horses, I know people keep them in very small paddocks. Sometimes they don't even let them out of the stalls, show horses, so that's a tough one.
Well, that's,
As a equine, what's your recommendation for space on a horse?
As much as possible. My horses are turned out as a herd, and they are herd animals, and that's the healthiest way, but you have people that have show horses, and they don't turn them out with other horses because of
Yep.
injury, and some people even keep them inside all the time so that the coats are pristine. So, yeah, I know.
No.
It's a head shaker. I grew up in Texas, and
Yep.
so that's a huge, yeah, I know. So you might get into problems with show people.
unfortunately, not everybody's gonna agree.
I know. I'm as much space as possible.
I would agree, more is better.
I mean, I would have my whole yard as a paddock. But every time I suggest enlarging, I get shot down.
I mean, if you have, by this rule, if you have 10 Nigerian goats, you need 13,750 square feet for them, which is not
A little
necessary.
over a quarter of an acre, that's an awful lot.
That's a lot for little goats.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
And they're herd animals too. They're not gonna be all, they wanna
they
be
want to be together.
together, yeah.
Yeah, again, that's an item that needs to be refined and honed in on a specific note.
Okay. I think. And I think everything else you have, Mark, was
That's great, yeah.
great. What, now we're removing the composting.
My feeling was to remove the compost right from it, because, I mean, there is already state regulations regarding composting. And to me, that just opens the door for people to have piles of manure, and all of a sudden, there becomes an excuse to leave a pile because I'm composting it, and it doesn't get taken away, and then the neighbors are up in arms, and it's August, and it doesn't smell very nice. So,
But then people that are doing the right thing get pulled into covering and,
yep.
it's
Well,
just
Like we talked about earlier, covering is not necessarily a good idea.
not at all.
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't get to dry out from the sun. It doesn't get to.
And then when you lift off that tarp, what's gonna come out?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
disgusting.
Yep.
Sure, you get plenty of steam, plenty of flies, and,
Whatever else has made its way to live in there.
Yes.
oh yeah, it happens.
All right, I need to leave. I apologize. I apologize.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's been great, so.
Right.
Some progress. So the 21st? Okay. And I'll bring the whole packet for
Perfect.
the meetings.
Great.
All right,
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
you too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice meeting everyone.
Nice to meet you too.
Jeff, do you have a size in mind for sheep or goats?
No, I want to measure what I have and see, because I kind of, I don't have an exact size, but I'd like to see what I have currently
Okay.
that seems to be working well. It just seems like that's a lot for a little goat.
Yeah, I agree. I think, 13,000 square feet for 10 goats. It's quite a bit, Well, we're gonna have more questions than answers, that's for sure.
Yep.
But going into the meeting with the Board of Health, at least if we've got the beginning of some talking points and some suggested direction, to me, that's the start of it.
Gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I'm concerned with the zoning a little bit. You know, you're going from a residential to a commercial, whether that flies with zoning, you know, the right to farm. I mean, I don't know the intent of that. I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, or what was going on with that, but I would hate to see somebody get all set up with a farm like somebody else did, and then have the plug pulled out from underneath them.
Yep. I don't know how to answer that question either. I know there's always an overlap of zoning regulations and agricultural regulations. And what causes one to stop and start is always the defining point that seems to be contentious.
Yep.
I think maybe that's an item that we need to be a little bit more honed in on. But as far as the Board of Health goes, the issue there is livestock.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So, and granted, you can sell poultry out of your freezer that have been processed properly, and that would be no different than selling tomatoes and cucumbers on farm. So there is a defining way to describe that, but I'm not sure I know the right way to describe it.
My understanding was that the product has to be made, grown, raised on the farm.
That is my understanding as well. And that being the case, you have pretty much a free hand to retail it, as long as it stays within any health requirements. Which would be meat, eggs, milk. I mean, they're all very specific regulations for all of these things. But to go back to the animals, it would be my feeling that if there were cows in question, the required space there is going to become a topic. Okay?
So 2,500 plus 1,250 for two, so 3,750 for two.
That's how that reads, and when you do the math, 2,500 square feet is more or less, excuse me, more or less 50 by 50. Okay? So a 50 by 50 paddock for, any creature that size is not an excessive amount of space.
Not for a full-grown cow, no,
No.
not in my eyes.
Again, more is better. But to put them in a 20 by 20 pen, that's another story. That's just not right.
I think my big cow is roughly in 3,500 square feet. It's about 70 by 50 where he is.
Okay?
But he only goes where the food is, so he doesn't like to.
The information that I've got down on that, are we pretty much in agreement that those details are okay to present to Board of Health?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay? Because, just keep in mind, we have no authority to regulate anything.
Right.
This is a think tank of sorts,
Right.
right? So, we're here to help and generate some direction and hopefully generate some answers instead of just questions.
Yep.
But I think we need to have some answers from then as well to help us establish some of the best policy that we could think through. And like Angela said, I mean, I'd be very much in support of not rushing this. I think we need to have a little time to
Really look
process it
into it.
and
There's
pick it apart.
too much
because-
here, and it's gonna evolve as things go on.
Well, I was afraid they were gonna try to
Another,
push something.
I mean, you know, I got the impression that maybe they were in a little bit of a hurry, and that's only because of the way I took a conversation. I'm not speaking for anybody, I don't know that, that's just how I felt about it. But, you know, all things being equal, I think part of the conversation needs to be important and presented to them as the fact that we need to have enough time to be thorough and thoughtful about it. You know, the unfortunate part is we're all coming into the busy time of year, and, you know, the extra time to kick things around is not easy to come up with. Well, I've got some notes. Anybody else got any ideas, any thoughts? Anything else you want to throw on the table?
No, I'm good.
Aaron, Ben? Well, then I believe what we got's I think we had a good conversation. We got some good talking points, some things to work on. I can't think of anything that I wanted to add to the conversation.
Can I just clarify on the pig issue? Would under 6 months would be not counted, from your opinion?
Is that how it was written?
I don't. It wasn't written, it was, but
It's not in there.
it's not spelled out.
Trying to remember what. There was a reference to that in a different section, Jeff.
Okay.
And it wasn't specific, but there was a reference to it. And
Yeah, 'cause you've got in there 3 feeder pigs. But what's to say you don't have 3 sows and have them artificially inseminated? And now you're looking at a whole lot more piglets.
30-something.
And you can double that if you do it twice. So we really need to refine this.
Yep, that's fine.
Which is, if we put it between 2 and 5 acres, 1 litter at a time would be fine. And I am, just speaking personally, I'm open to, if for some reason this became a problem, then it gets shut down. If it's a true problem, if a health inspector or somebody comes out and is like, this is not good for the neighborhood, then it's gotta go.
Okay, well, again, we need language,
That's what I'm looking for. It's
so,
not just a blanket no.
Yeah, I would be more comfortable, well, that's fine, but I mean, I would be comfortable with 1 litter at a time.
That,
Until they have been dispersed, or,
yes.
you know, sometime you sell the piglets as piglets and other people, so that number goes down, but if, you know, you're gonna have, just say 12 at a time, and you're gonna have 24, then, you know, and you're getting pretty big,
right, right.
and that's
And
where the problems are gonna lie.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's, so if that's how we write it or suggest it,
Well, at the same time, keep in mind here that you have to get people to agree with it. So it's gotta be sizable enough to be palatable for both sides of the argument. So to your point, maybe 2 adult pigs
Yeah, 1 and 1.
is appropriate. Well, I mean, I don't know whether you're gonna have your own boar or not, and a lot of people
Well,
would not want one.
but I mean, if you have 2 adult females, then you can have 2 litters at a time.
Yeah, but then when you start having 2 litters at a time, that's where you're gonna run into a
No, that's what I'm
problem. That's
saying.
Your
So
volume
that's-
changes.
I would
I would
be
limit it
comfortable
to-
with 2 adult pigs
Yeah,
with 1 litter at a time. And that would, whether you have a sow and a boar or 2 sows, that gets away from having 20 piglets at a time or
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And that is where I see the issue going.
I agree.
I mean, and not just that, it's one thing to get rid of a dozen pigs. It's a whole nother story to get rid of 2 dozen,
Yep,
and just the amount of feed and waste and everything else that goes with it is
absolutely. It gets out of hand pretty quick.
unbelievable. Yeah, yep.
So what, 1 litter at a time would be,
To me, that's ample.
oh, yeah, no, that's fine with,
But I don't know how you would control that unless you had 2 sows and you had them artificial, or a sow and a boar.
I think it's having 1 sow
Yeah,
who can't have 2 litters at a time, can only have 1 at a time. And if you haven't gotten rid of the first litter, you can't have another.
right.
That would be fine. But I think we have to be able to have the opportunity. And under 5 acres, more regulation, that's fine.
Good. Spell it out.
I'll write it up. I think that's,
Let's start with some language. Let's have some dialogue, so we have something to talk about.
same as, and on your point too, are we gonna suggest numbers, 1/4 acre lot, X amount of chickens for a family?
Well, I'm inclined to think that there needs to be a minimum flock size for the well-being of the chickens, okay? To me, a minimum flock size would be 6. And I don't think roosters should be excluded. I think a rooster in a flock in a small setting is adequate. That gives the people the opportunity to have chicks if they choose to, okay? Or stew, either way. But, and the other issue here too is when you start looking at the poultry, there's a difference between egg layers and meat birds. Your cycle time is different, it's a different environment. 8 weeks, meat birds are gone.
Big birds, I did in 6.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
You're outside is 2 months, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's not unreasonable to have a dozen or 18 if somebody's gonna freeze them.
Yeah.
You got a big family and,
Well, the
You know?
pretty much, this is where like the Purdue commercial's ridiculous. Those things aren't walking around outside.
no.
In the 6 weeks, they don't go outside.
Well, you know what? All of that foolishness is the reason these conversations all take place. Because so many people think that cows live on a green grassy hill somewhere in Northern California and they listen to music and
Those are
smoke
happy
pot.
cows.
Well,
They are happy cows.
to reasonably graze a cow, it should be 5 acres per cow
2
to feed them. 2?
2 acres.
Even if it's 2, in this area, who's gonna have 2 acres of grass for a
Well,
cow?
that's a totally different topic,
Yep.
right? Because that's not a realistic thing.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, no matter what you do here, you're talking about a miniature feedlot. So,
Yep.
knowing that you're gonna have, for all intent and purpose, a miniature feedlot, it's gotta be in such a fashion where it's not gonna be an annoyance to the other people that are close by, because we don't have,
Well, I think especially on the pigs, which everyone thinks are gross and everything, that's fine to have the regulation. And if it is out of hand, it goes away.
Well, and that's, the object of the regulation is to give animal control a baseline for enforcement,
Yeah.
right?
But a
It
standard-
protects everybody
Yeah, but a
on both
standard-
sides.
A standard enforcement.
That's correct. That's correct, okay? So what we need to do is continue to go forward to establish this. Come up with recommendations. And taking feedback from animal control, I think is a very valid thing. Because, I mean, she specifically has things that she's gonna be aware of that we may not be aware of. Her perspective may be a little bit different in some cases, so,
I think inspections should be timed and dated, and announced ahead of time. I mean, even the police can't come walking into your house unannounced unless they have a warrant and just cause.
okay, well, again,
That's a
these points, and I mean, I don't disagree with that, Aaron. I don't think anybody likes a surprise attack by anybody, I think that's probably just polite and generally
Yeah.
more palatable,
Safer for everybody.
Yeah. And I don't believe it's anybody's intention to hide anything. Just a little courtesy,
Yeah, that's it. Well, I know when Jack was here, Jack was welcome every day at my property. But Jack handled things a little different.
Well, I'm afraid that's an issue that you need to address at that source if you've got a concern or problem.
I think Aaron and Angela's point, an appointment, a reasonable appointment. No, I can't say, no, you can't come. But if they call and say, we'd like to come, I don't care if they call and say, we'd like to come tomorrow, that's fine.
Some sort of notice would be
Yes.
appreciated.
But the,
Simple appointment like you have to do with everything else, unless there's a complaint, then they can come down without notification.
Yep.
And that's their job, because
Yes.
there's a lot of animal abuse going on a regular basis everywhere. And that's what they need to do, otherwise, people
No,
hide
that's-
stuff, but
totally agreeable.
But like anything, with the law or anything else, if there's no complaint, they just can't come walking in your house.
Sure.
For the heck of it, they've gotta have just cause.
Yep. No, I think that's fair. But again, these are things that need to be on the table as part of the conversation, because they are absolutely valid points. Okay. Well, if we've got nothing else to come up with, we could certainly take the opportunity to adjourn unless anybody's opposed.
I have one question.
Fire away.
How do I spell adjourn?
I don't know.
Adjourn,
Yeah, I'm taking the notes.
ADJ.
Is it a D or?
AJ,
Yeah.
OU, adjourned, I don't know.
I just don't want to get killed for my spelling on the official notes.
Hey, you took the secretary job, pal. You work it out. I'll be the first to admit that my spelling is not my strong point.
ADJUR.
It is, okay, AD.
There you go.
Well, I took this job, but I don't even do this stuff for myself.
Like a kid's for.
Okay.
Jillian now, it's perfect. Sure.
All right.
Do you make a motion?
I would move to adjourn.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Me too.